Okay, make sure the captions are going. Perfect. Okay, you all. Well, let's go ahead and get started on today's lecture, or this week's lecture, I should say. We are looking at participation and problem solving. These are two areas that are very important in group communication and just in communication in general. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me get my notes pulled up. Okay. Okay, so the agenda. Oh, let's pause. Okay, so on the agenda for today, we're going to look at participation in more detail. Then we're going to look at cultural diversity. We all have different ideas of what this looks like. Just keep in mind that we're not only looking at diversity in the sense of ethnic and culturally ethnic diversity. We're looking at that, but we're also looking at other types of diversity in other cultural contexts. We're going to look at constructive participation. We're going to look at effective meetings, group meetings, and then we're going to look at creative problem solving skills. So lesson objectives for this lecture, we will explain procedures for conducting productive group discussions that will result in effective decisions and solutions for problems, explore ways to encourage participation from group members, and then describe ways to conduct effective decision-making group meetings. So participation. So I don't know if you guys remember, but at the beginning of the semester, we looked at, I gave you guys a quote about a study that was done where the top executives in the United States indicated that they hated group work and they hated group meetings. About 80% said that they did not like participation in group meetings because they thought it was a waste of time. Um, Now, that number is still that high. However, what we're looking at here is ineffective group meetings lead to a negative taste in people's mind, especially these business executives. So, what they are missing in these meetings is good participation. And the book quotes low participation from group members, especially those who are merely shy or reticent to contribute for a variety of reasons, can severely impact group effectiveness. And for business executives, they're pretty high up in the chain. They want things to go smoothly so they can get the numbers to their boss. And if people are not participating or being effective, then it's going to affect the whole group, especially them. So that's why they don't like group work and group meetings. Um, this video that is shown here, that will be a part of your group discussion for this week. It's a pretty funny video, but it does talk about the importance of specifically class participation. And the reason why I chose this video is because it's still group communication in the classroom, right? We are all a part of a group communication. Our class is focused on small group communication, but we're all a part of the bigger umbrella of group communication. So it's still really important for us to realize that. And because of that, we need to realize how important class participation is. This goes for all your classes, not just mine. In the online format, that obviously is different for an asynchronous class, but this video goes over that as well. So you will see that in the video for this week. So we're going to go ahead and just skip right along. Okay, so cultural diversity. We're going to look at this in depth here. So cultural diversity, a little bit ahead of myself. Okay, so basically what we're looking at here is we're looking at cultural diversity in the lens of participation. So in some cultures, in some countries, the act of participating in a group environment is actually shunned. It's actually looked down upon. More specifically, let's use Japan as an example. So, up until 2009, Japan didn't have a jury system in their legal system. In the United States, we have this system where random Americans are selected to be on a jury to pass judgment on a case that's before them to determine if someone's guilty or um, not guilty. In Japan, they didn't have this until 2009 because there was a long-standing belief and deep cultural reticence to expressing opinions in public discourse. So up until 2009, there was no jury system. It was just a three-judge panel to decide court cases. This new system combined three trained judges and six citizens that were picked randomly, just like how we are picked randomly to make these decisions. There was a poll done in Japan about this, and it revealed about 80% of Japanese dread servicing on juries. Um, Another example is a Chinese proverb. It's actually Chinese, Cambodian, and Japanese, Thai, Vietnamese. So a lot of these Asian cultures have a proverb that says, "Those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know." And then for the Japanese, more specifically, silence is considered a virtue as well as a sign of respectability and trustworthiness. So as you can see, there are some cultures and some individuals in your groups in the future, or maybe even in this class, where their silence isn't seen as being disrespectful. But in American culture, if you don't participate, you are looked down upon. So it's the exact opposite in our culture. Um, and the reason why we're talking about this is because we obviously come from diverse backgrounds. So everyone you meet in any different group, there's going to be something that's different. And the reason why I said at the beginning, while we're not only focusing on cultural diversity in the sense of where someone's from and that culture from that area, the thing is, you all belong to different cultures. Even if you are American, you do belong to other cultures. Some of you are brothers, some of you are sisters, some of you are aunts, some of you are uncles, some of you are only children. So you belong to a different culture than someone else, perhaps. You also belong to different family cultures. For example, a tradition in my family is for Christmas, we open each gift one at a time, and one person opens a gift goes to the next person. And we just do that for however long it needs to take. That's a tradition in my family, and that's a cultural difference between me and someone else, perhaps. So it's just being aware that just because someone's participating does not mean that they are less than or that they should be viewed as less than. It's we come from different backgrounds. Okay. Okay, so the value of verbal participation. So the value of verbal participation in decision making is perceived differently from culture to culture, like we had just discussed. Silent individuals are not seriously considered for the role of a leader in American culture for those reasons. Students from collectivistic cultural traditions typically see speaking too much in class as a sign of conceit and superficiality. So that's just another example how other cultures view someone who is actively participating negatively, while here we would view them positively. So ethnic minorities, and this is straight from the book. So this number two should actually be ethnic/cultural minorities because it's not just individuals who are not American. It's also individuals who are disadvantaged, individuals who are marginalized. So we're looking at disabled individuals, we're looking at LGBTQ plus individuals, we're looking at all these different groups of people who are marginalized. And the reason why we're focusing on this is because those individuals are the ones who have reported feeling like they can't voice their opinion. And this goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago about a negative group climate. So remember, a negative group climate is what we do not want to have in our groups. We want to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to voice their opinion, that we need to have opportunity to voice our opinions. And individuals who are historically marginalized or feel marginalized in a group tend to not want to voice their opinion. So their participation is going to be very limited. For example, minorities report considerably less faculty for communicating with others in a college setting. Thankfully, that quote is from 1993, so hopefully, and I'm pretty sure that has probably changed as our classrooms have gotten more and more diverse. Lackluster participation. So, lackluster participation from ethnic minorities in decision making may result from weak commitment to the group. What this means is when there's less of a feeling of camaraderie in a group, we're less likely to contribute. And when we contribute less, then it actually harms the decision making because not everyone is on board. And the thing is, we need these individuals with different world experiences to make a well informed decision for the group. So we need these people to participate. So, how can we increase participation in a constructive way? A way that isn't targeting anyone, isn't singling out anyone. First things first, we should encourage them. So, encourage contributions from low participators. This is especially important for involving those from ethnic or marginalized minority groups where cultural values discourage assertiveness. So, one way of doing this is when low participators offer contributions, we should indicate that their participation is valued by actively listening to what that person has to say and perhaps thank them for their contribution. So, if you notice that someone is contributing when they usually and historically have not in a group, you should acknowledge that. Say, let them know that you're thankful for their contribution, and you hope to hear from them in the future. Okay. Then we have relevance. So we need to make issues and problems for discussion relevant to the interests of low participators. When groups work on interesting, involving, or challenging tasks, member contributions increase. So what we're looking at here is when we have these discussions in the group, we need to make sure that we're on topic and it's relevant to the group. So talking about other things like the game that happened last night, or what some influencer said online is distracting and not relevant to the group discussion. Unless it is, of course, unless you're doing a report or something on that. And then responsibility. You should give the individuals who participate less some type of responsibility for a certain task. Don't give them the task, the biggest task. Give them something small so they can feel like they're contributing in a meaningful way and therefore uh, are feel more comfortable in the group. If low participators believe that their efforts have an impact on the group's final decision or product, they are less likely to remain uninvolved. Okay. Um, okay. So we want to make sure that we also establish a cooperative group climate. This is particularly important for ethnic minorities from collectivistic cultures who are likely to feel more comfortable and committed in such an atmosphere. I'm sorry, there we go. And then once you've done all this, once you've done the encouraging, once you've made sure that's relevant, once you made sure that the low participators have some type of responsibility, and once it's established that there's cooperation, then you can have a little bit more fun with it. Remember, we're looking at constructive participation. We're not looking at just giving these individuals a free ride. We're looking at encouraging them to speak up, and then we can actually have a dialectical inquiry. So this is one way. There's actually two methods of combating groupthink, and that's through constructive participation. So that's just ensuring that everyone in the group is able to defend their ideas when they have them. Okay, so like I mentioned at the beginning, group meetings, everyone hates them. So we're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly because there are some good. So it saves time and it increases productivity in groups. So meeting with people actually saves time in the long run, so you don't have to go back and forth. Arguments can be heard in person rather than online, so we can ensure that there's no miscommunication because there's no tone over text or email. So having group meetings actually ensures that we can hear each other and we can hear the tone of the person's voice. Now it's time for the bad and ugly. So unclear purpose of the meeting, participants are unprepared. So whenever there's an unclear purpose of the meeting, it's really irritating. And usually and that the reason why the participants are unprepared is because there's an unclear purpose. So going into a meeting without having any idea what you're going into can be quite frustrating. The key individual, so the teacher, the manager, the business partner, whoever it is that's calling the meeting, is usually a key individual. And if they're absent or late, then that obviously is a really bad thing. So you want to make sure that if you are a key individual, that you aren't late or absent. Irrelevant conversation. So if the conversation strays away from what is on the agenda, then it can be an ineffective group meeting. Discussion domination. So this is why class participation with your professors are super important because we don't want to feel like we're dominating the discussion. Obviously, it's a little bit more nuanced for us because we're the ones with the information, but in the long scheme of things, we are actually there for you guys, so we want to have a discussion with you. So participate. But also in other group settings, discussion is important. We need to make sure that there's not one person dominating the discussion. One way to ensure that people don't participate is by having someone who dominates the discussion. Decision not implemented. So typically, when we have multiple different meetings and the decision from the last meeting was established, but it wasn't implemented by the time the next meeting happens, can be quite frustrating and lead to an ineffective group meeting. Okay, so let's talk about creative problem solving. So you're going to have to do this at one point in group meetings and group discussions and projects. So it's important that we go over it. So one thing to make sure we are all understanding of is that creativity is more perspiration than inspiration. So what we're looking at here is devoting time and energy to the task, not hoping for imaginative ideas to fall from the sky and clunk us on the head. So we actually have to put in the work for creativity to work. We actually have to put in the steps for inspiration to instill in the group. Creativity is spurred by challenges. So the bigger the challenge, the more complex the problem, the greater is the need for creativity. Creativity flourishes in cooperative, not competitive environments. So we talked about competition a couple weeks ago and how detrimental that could be to a group. Remember, you're a group, there should not be any competition happening. You guys are working towards a shared goal. Therefore, creativity really does flourish when it's cooperative rather than competitive. Creativity requires sound ideas, not just imaginative ones. So when we think of creativity, you might think, oh, I just have to think imaginatively. I can think of anything and it will be creative. No. For something to help solve a problem, using creativity is great when it has actual base in reality. When someone comes up with something, an idea, and it's not based in reality, it's unattainable, then there's no point in even saying it. Creativity requires many ideas. So being creative does not mean you have one idea. It means you have many different ideas. Creativity requires breaking mindsets and thinking outside of the box. Okay? One way to instill creativity is through brainstorming. So, creative problem solving technique that promotes plentiful, even zany ideas in an atmosphere free from criticism and with enthusiastic participation from all group members. We're going to do an activity. So, go ahead when you're watching this lecture, go ahead and take a picture of this QR code, and it will take you to the prompt. We're going to be talking about ideas on how to resolve world peace. Go ahead and put your contribution into the website that it takes you to. Make sure to screenshot your contribution, um, and then post that into the discussion board for this week. Okay, and I'll publish the results. So there are some guidelines for brainstorming, however. So before you do the picture and the contribution to the activity, make sure you go to this slide first before doing so. So we want to encourage wild ideas. So think outside the box. Don't evaluate your idea while brainstorming. So really think about how to resolve world peace and don't evaluate it. If it sounds silly, just put it in and we'll see what happens. Don't clarify or seek clarification. Do not engage in task irrelevant discussion. So if we're talking about world peace, don't bring up what your dog ate for breakfast. Hopefully it's dog food. Stay focused on the topic. So if we're talking about world peace and solving it, stay on that topic. Expand the ideas of other group members. So this part you won't be able to do just because we're in an online format. So we can't really expand on others' ideas until the results are published. Record all ideas without references to who contributed the idea. So when you're doing brainstorming, just write down the ideas, don't write down who came up with the idea. Encourage participation from all group members. So that's what I just did in telling you that it's a part of your discussion. Evaluate ideas generated once the brainstorming phase is completed. So this is what I'll be doing on my end, is I'll evaluate which idea it seems like everyone liked. Or maybe what I'll do in the discussion board is write down what everyone voted or what the most common themes were. And I can put up a couple examples and we can all vote on it. That might be fun. So the nominal group technique is individuals that work by themselves, generating ideas for on a problem, then convene in a group where they merely record the ideas generated. So this is another type of creativity. So instead of doing brainstorming where it's a whole group brainstorming an idea, nominal group technique is when individuals work by themselves and they come up with reasons or ways to solve a problem. Then they come back to the group setting where they talk about it. Okay, electronic brainstorming. This is when brainstorming that we just went over is happening in a mediated space. So basically, what we're doing right now for your discussion board. Reframing. So this is when creative processes of breaking in mindset by describing the problem from a different frame of reference. So if you're having issues trying to understand a concept, try looking at it from a different angle. Try switching some of the words in the definition to match something else that's more easily under, understandable. Understood. Yeah, understood. Integrative problem solving is a creative approach to conflict of interest. It searches for solutions that benefit everyone. So that's another way of having problem solving, is looking at a way that actually will resolve everyone's issues or benefit everyone in some way rather than just the few. And then expanding the pie. This is when we refer to increasing the resources as a solution to the problem. So I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a point in time when the teachers at Sac State were picketing because they believed they weren't getting paid well, they weren't getting enough benefits, so they picketed. Sac State's solution to expanding the pie was increasing the teachers' wages, increasing their benefits as a solution to the problem, rather than actually focusing on the problem. Okay, so that's expanding the pie. So that is our lecture for this week. It was a little bit faster than usual. So go ahead and make sure to continue reading the book. Make sure to contribute to the discussion board, and we'll see you guys next week.